reaching out to people during a time of crisis, providing personal attention, touching lives. As a volunteer for the Hospital ElderLife program, you are joining an exciting and innovative program where your commitment to helping a very special group of patients can make a significant difference in their recovery.
My motivation for creating the ElderLife program really stemmed out of my experiences with taking care of patients, older patients, when they were admitted to the hospital. And I really felt there must be a way that we could try to improve care for older patients so they wouldn't it wouldn't result in what I was often seeing of confusion and functional decline while they were in the hospital.
Experienced physicians who have been caring for older people for a long time themselves know that the hospital is often a very dangerous place for an older person. Not dangerous in the sense that people do bad things to them, but dangerous in the sense that they often lose independence during that hospitalization.
When people over the age of 70 are hospitalized, they frequently experience declines unrelated to the illness or accident that caused the hospitalization. The physical and mental toll can lengthen hospital stays and affect the ability of elderly patients to return to their previous level of independence. The Hospital ElderLife program has 4 goals that address these problems. The program works to help patients maintain cognitive and physical functioning throughout their hospitalization, to allow patients to return home as independent as possible, to assist with the transition from hospital to home, and to prevent unplanned readmission.
The value of the program is that we see the patient and implement our interventions early before people start to decline or before they get medications that may not be good for them.
It makes the environment for older people and their families more friendly, less frightening, more rewarding.
It was very important to our family that there was a support program in the hospital that could enhance my mother's health.
The Hospital ElderLife program is an innovative approach to providing good geriatric care. The program addresses the problems of frail older patients with specific interventions designed to improve their care. These interventions include 4 volunteer protocols. Daily Visitor, a program that provides daily communication and socialization to help keep patients from becoming disoriented. Feeding Assistance, a mealtime program of companionship and assistance. Early Mobilization, providing daily walking assistance and exercise. And Therapeutic Activities, a program providing special activities to keep patients mentally stimulated during their hospital stay. Trained volunteers play a crucial central role in the program, carrying out these protocols at the patient's bedside. The level of patient contact and responsibility of volunteers are unique aspects of the program, requiring special training to equip volunteers with the necessary skills to work one-on-one with the frail elderly.
Position, we want to try to make it as relaxing as possible and as natural.
There are 3 stages to the training process. Classroom instruction includes 16 hours of coursework, videotapes, small group demonstrations, and discussions on how to handle specific patient situations. The second training component gives every volunteer an opportunity to see each of the protocols in action. New volunteers spend 16 hours working one-on-one with veteran volunteers, following their activities as they work on the floor with patients.
I think you're going to do fine, okay?
Okay.
Let's go.
The next part of the shadowing involves them actually being the person who works with the patient, but has a volunteer with them, and that's like a net for them. So if they have a question they can't answer, if a situation comes up they don't feel comfortable with, or they're not sure how to handle, there's someone else standing right there who's done it for a while and can help them out.
Finally, before working alone with patients, volunteers demonstrate their proficiency with all the interventions. Competency-based checklists will be used to evaluate their performance. As part of the training process, each volunteer receives a training manual that reinforces the material covered during class sessions and on the videotapes. Volunteers should use the manual as an ongoing reference tool. In addition to detailed descriptions of activities, the manual contains valuable background information about the protocols, sample competency checklists, and topics for discussion.
Hi, Mr. Yaska?
When a person over the age of 70 is admitted to the hospital and is expected to remain more than 48 hours, specific criteria determine whether that patient may be enrolled into the Elder Life program.
The first thing I want to find out is when you were at home, how...
An Elder Life specialist performs a brief assessment to determine if the patient is at risk of decline mentally or physically during the stay. Patients who are functioning well and don't need the additional attention of the program, or who have already declined physically or mentally to a point where the program cannot help, are not enrolled in the program. As an Elder Life volunteer, it is important to only work with patients who have been selected, even if you are approached by other patients, their families, or the nursing staff.
The screening of the patients is really critical. We need to make sure that we are seeing a population of people who have identified needs that we can actually meet.
Becoming an Elder Life program volunteer means taking part in a unique program that directly impacts patients' lives. Volunteers who participate in the program must meet and maintain the highest standards. Volunteers must be reliable. Patients depend on the consistent delivery of interventions 3 times a day, 7 days a week. If it becomes unavoidable for a volunteer to miss an assigned shift due to illness or a family emergency, letting the volunteer coordinator know far enough in advance will ensure adequate substitute coverage.
Well, they tell me I'm supposed to have an MRI. Can you tell me what that is?
I can't explain what an MRI is.
Volunteers need to remember that they work within specific guidelines. They are never to offer medical advice or interfere with a patient's medical treatment. When a patient raises medical questions or concerns, volunteers refer them to the appropriate medical or hospital Elder Life staff. The ability to problem solve and use good judgment in all patient interactions is essential for all volunteers. Volunteers need to be able to work independently.
Leslie?
Oh, hi, Lorenzo.
Hi. Listen, I have a question about a patient.
Oh, okay. Come on over here so we're out of the nurse's station.
And it's about Mr. Wilson.
Okay.
Empathy and discretion in dealing with patients and their families is woven into every aspect of a volunteer's daily activities. Volunteers need to respect the confidentiality of their patients' conditions. They should never discuss patients with anyone other than the medical staff or hospital Elder Life specialist. A characteristic that goes hand in hand with confidentiality is respect for the patient. Volunteers should conduct activities in a manner that preserves the dignity of the patient. Volunteers need to remember that good communication is important to the success of all of the activities. This means volunteers need to be enthusiastic in their approach and become active listeners to pick up on cues that patients give regarding special needs.
I always tell them, you're the boss. You're in charge here. Now let's sit down and talk about your life. And I find most of the time, after they start talking about their lives, their families, their times in the hospital, a few minutes after, they relax, they're a little bit happier, they've warmed up to you as a volunteer, and after that I find progress can take place.
Personal habits of volunteers can directly impact their interactions with patients. Volunteers should strive for a professional appearance that includes minimal makeup, no perfume, hair pulled away from the face, visible identification, and neat but comfortable clothing and shoes that won't restrict movement. Also, volunteers should avoid wearing jewelry that might get caught in patients' clothing or bedding. Furthermore, the use of tobacco, alcohol, or illegal drugs is strictly prohibited while on duty. And, above all, volunteers need to demonstrate a genuine enjoyment of working with older people.
I think one of the major values of Elder Life is the willingness to be with an elderly person. It's something that we don't, as a society, value much. We look at what we do, not what we are and how we can be with another person. And for the hospitalized elderly patient, that often is the difference for them, is someone willing to be with them, to sit, maybe hold their hand.
We found that the volunteers brought a wonderful component to our program. a very human element. And so now it's a part of our program that's almost evolved into like the heart and soul of the program, and we wouldn't change it.
I wanted to be a volunteer in the Hospital Elder Life program because 3 years ago my mother was a patient at the Elder Life program, and as a family I realized how important it was in terms of a program that could be with my mother, spend time with her, help her with her physical strength, take her for walks, and more than anything else just be a companion to her, because a family and family members can't be there at the hospital all the time.
Help is such a broad term that it could be helping someone physically in terms of making sure they get their exercise for the day, helping someone emotionally, making sure that you're the person there to listen if they have a story to tell or if they have a complaint. Basically spending time with the patients is a big help, because when you have the time to spend, patients will tell you what their needs are more readily.
For volunteers who may only see a particular patient once, it's sometimes difficult to see how you make a difference. That's the main reason documenting your activities is so important. Your descriptions of patients, your explanations of what happens during interventions, and your comments about everything from a patient's willingness to walk to how many spoonfuls of dinner they ate all provide a more complete picture of the people we serve. Documentation is the proof we have that Elder Life volunteers do make a difference.
When the Elder Life volunteer records what they have done on the interventions on the patients, it actually gives direct feedback to the Elder Life staff and to the next shift of volunteers coming on, so that they can know what problems there were with that patient. Did they successfully accomplish all of the interventions? Were there any left undone that need to be picked up by the next volunteer, and so forth. So it serves a very important communication role amongst the staff and between volunteers and between the volunteers and the staff.
We try to emphasize with the volunteers that if they don't write down what they did with the patients because of the fact that they are working independently with patients, then they will be the only person who knows what has gone on.
It's important as a volunteer also to be an observer, because a patient's status can be changing day to day or shift to shift, particularly from volunteer shift to volunteer shift. And so what we do is we can observe the patient, and if we find that perhaps they're starting to develop any kinds of aches and pains and exercises we've been doing with the different legs or arms they no longer can do, we want to report that immediately to the doctor or to the nurse.
The other thing too is we want to see if there's a pattern with either the patient or the volunteer of not participating in one of the interventions. Did they run out of time? Did they have too many patients? Was someone off the floor? Did they refuse? What was the reason why something wasn't done? Because we account for every single intervention we do on every single patient, and we have to have a reason why something wasn't done.
Proof of a program's success can take many forms: acceptance by the medical community, by the hospital administration, by the patients and their families, and of course, by the volunteers themselves.
We've had patients actually write letters to the president of the hospital saying how they've been to the hospital before, but this was the best experience they ever had. They felt like someone was always there, someone cared about them.
I would say that each one of us has the ability to inspire, no matter what our age. We have the ability to raise another person's spirit if we have a very positive attitude about life and we accentuate the positives.
I personally feel that as a volunteer, you can be rewarded by helping someone else. And I think if you get the self-gratification from that, it will enrich you in many ways. You grow from helping other people.
I'm just struck very deeply by how dedicated and committed and really wonderful the volunteers are, and the tremendous unique component that they bring to the program. There's just nothing that compares to it.